Welcome to stream number 35 in this series where I'm programming an NES game live on stream on Twitch. Let's get going. So, last time we left off, we were reorganizing how data was exported for the game. The reason we did that was because we wanted the meta tiles to be exported in the right order. And the reason that mattered was because the map data was looking for the meta tiles based on the order that they were in the JSON file that gets exported for the map. So just to kind of remind everybody, this is the format of the map that comes in from tiled. We need this order to match the order that we're exporting it in so that the meta tiles and palettes are loaded in the proper order. And then we got that working, and we left off with the game displaying the tiles properly with the proper colors. And all appears to be well there. One thing I did notice is you'll see that the way that the name table scrolling is getting updated, we are moving the scrolling over to the right for the status bar correctly, but it's not keeping the horizontal scroll in a fixed location like it's supposed to be. So I want to fix that, because I want to also be able to start putting things into the status bar and have that actually be something that we can start maybe populating with some real data. So I want to go back to the scrolling information here and see what we're doing wrong in terms of the way that we're modifying. So I know we're doing the course increment to modify. We're actually just flipping the bit for which name table offset we're using, if I remember correctly, which is why the Y value is not getting modified. So we're doing this, and I think this part is actually not doing anything. Like if we restart here, you can see it's pretty much scrolling in this name table on the right side here. So we got to figure out how to force the Y offset for the scrolling to be 0 so that it's fixed, so that we're only getting the bottom of the screen showing up properly. So I guess the question is, how are we going to do this? How is this different, or why is this different from what we were trying to do? So this is the Ppu Internal Registers. The screen does not use split scrolling. Setting the position of the background requires only writing the X and Y coordinates to 2005 and the high bit of both coordinates to 2000. Programming or emulating a game that uses complex raster effects, on the other hand, requires a complete understanding of how the various address registers inside the Ppu work. So I don't really know too much about this, and I probably should have read up on it more. But let's see. So there's a V register, which has the VRAM address. There's a T register, which is a temporary VRAM address. Can also be thought of as the address of the top left on-screen tile. There is the fine X control, And then there is the first or second write toggle. So the PPU uses the current VRAM address for both reading and writing PPU memory through 2007, and for fetching name table data to draw the background. As it's drawing the background, it updates the address to point to the name table data currently being drawn. Bits 10 and 11 hold the base address of the name table minus 2000, and bits 12 through 14 are the Y offset of the scan line with a tile, within a tile. The 15-bit register T and V are composed in this way during rendering. So these are the coarse scroll. These was 5 bits, and then this 5 bits, and then you have the name table selected in 2 bits, and the fine Y scroll in 3 bits. In the following, D refers to the data written to the port, and A through H are the individual bits of the value. 2005 and 6 share a common toggle, so the first write has one behavior and the second write has another. After the second write, the toggle is reset to the first write behavior. This toggle may be manually reset by reading 2002. So let's see. So if you write 2000, it's going to only set, let's see, if D refers to the data written to the port. So this is saying that a write to 2000 twice, only BA is actually, these 2 bits actually affect this temporary, or are affected by this data written. And reading, you get W is equal to 0. And then write, when W is 0, it's not really super clear how what this actually is referring to, at least in my mind. So at dot 256 of each scan line, if rendering is enabled, the PPU increments the vertical position V. The effective Y scroll coordinate is incremented, which is a complex operation that will correctly skip the attribute table memory regions and wrap to the next name table appropriately. At dot 257 of each scan line, if rendering is enabled, the PPU copies all bits related to the horizontal position from temporary to V, which is what again? V is the current VRAM address. During dots 280 to 304 of the pre-rendering scan line, at the end of the V blank, if rendering is enabled at the end of the V blank shortly after the horizontal bits, so this is the end of the V blank. Between dot 328 of a scan line and 256 of the next scan line, PPU increments the horizontal position in V many times across the scan line, begins at dots 328 and 336, and will continue through the next scan line at 8, 16, 24, every 8 dots across scan line until 256 the effective X scroll coordinate is incremented, which will wrap to the next name table appropriately. Outside of rendering, reads from or writes to 2007 will add either, so this is how we're updating the name table, right? So we're writing to that 2007, and it's writing across this way. If you changed it so that you wanted it to write incrementing by 32, it would actually go down row by row along the column instead of the across the row. So let's see. I don't really want, I guess I want the Y scroll, but the thing is that I want, I guess I want the Y scroll to be 0, so I would need to do this. So was this what I was doing before? I guess so. So I had The problem is that this didn't work on the actual NES. So, name table number 048 or C times 4. Okay, right, so that's why it's 048 or C to 2006, and then you want to write the Y increment to 2005, or the Y scroll to 2005, and the X scroll to 2005, and then the low byte of the name table address to 2006, which is Y and F8 shifted by 2 bitwise ORed with X shifted to the right by 3. The last 2 writes should occur during the horizontal blanking to avoid visual errors. And I think that's why we were getting sort of like that weird glitchy view, kind of like in the middle of the screen there. But yeah, see, that's the thing, is that it worked. This is really expensive in both bytes and time. Whether you reset the toggle by reading 2002. Do we need to reset the toggle here? By writing 2006, the second write causes an immediately full reload of VT. This example, we will perform 2 writes to each of 2005 and 2006. We will set the X scroll and Y scroll and name table select by writes to 2005 and 2006. The diagram shows where the value fits into the 4 register writes. So we're loading A with 4 and writing to 2006. And they're not doing the read from 2002, so I'm going to leave that alone. So that's fine. And then we wanted to change... So then the next value is the Y value. Which I guess I want that actually to be 0. Well, let's make that 0 and see what it does. So that's changing T. So that the value 3E in this case gets written as this. And then it's writing the value to 2005, and then after that it's writing, in this case, EF, but that's because of the value that's being used, I believe, based on this formula. So in this case we'd have Y 0. So this would be 0 for us because we're not actually, I wanted to reset the scroll to 0, 0. So let's see. So that looks okay, except for that glitch coming back. And then, so it's putting the scroll over here, which isn't exactly what I wanted. Go to the Hex Editor and go to the Ppu memory. And let's see. I think 2CE. We'll try 2, 3, 1. Oops. I scrolled the mouse over too far. 2, 7. Let's try 2700 hex. Right, so we're actually putting tiles into here that you can see, but they're definitely not showing up in the status bar. And that's because, again, the scroll position seems to be here, which is, what is this? 24A0. So if I go to 24A0 and start putting values in, we would see, I would imagine we would see something in the status bar. Yeah, there it is. So the question is, what am I doing wrong where the scrolling value is not? Oh, except, okay, this is the same confusion I think I had last time about, I guess it, you know, I'm kind of harping on it not being in the position I want it to be, but does it really matter? It's like, as long as I know where it is consistently, does it, I'm not sure that it really matters, since the scroll position is showing up, or the scroll is happening where I want it to happen. Or let me rephrase that. I'm not sure that it's worth fighting with this thing to get it to do what I want, specifically when it's close enough, and as long as it's predictable, we would be okay. Let me see something here. What am I setting up the counter to be? C0? Is that actually what we're getting? Oops. So that's actually right. So the counter is happening on exactly the right scan line, so that's good. I guess what I want to do is I want to know, do I really care if it's at the bottom here? Is that going to really make a difference? I mean, functionally, no. Guess it just seems sloppy to do it that way. Right, so we would be able to, we could in theory just say, you know what, I don't care where it is as long as it's consistently in the same place, and say, okay, at 2440 we're going to write our status bar information. So 2440 lousy tile to use. It's not that much better. Why are you doing 60? No, 65. You can see that we're getting that visual glitch now here because of because of what it said about not setting the last two writes at the end of the horizontal update. We didn't have that problem with the other scrolling that we were doing. But I guess the question then becomes, how do we know you can set the intended Y after .256. The last two writes can be timed to fall within H blank to avoid any visible glitch. H blank begins after .256. So, but how do you know that? That's, I guess, the question. Let's see if there's a way to detect that. What is this? No. Okay, it says you can do it during H blank, but it doesn't say how you determine you're at H blank. Doesn't really help us. Let's see. During we look at that. If rendering is enabled, the PPU copies all bits related to horizontal position from T to V. Well, we'd have to be able to look at those specifically. Let's see if Google will help us. Let's detect H blank. Let's see what they have to say here. Making right. Some threads have suggested this, but is it possible and how? When I've tried scrolling. So, what am I looking at? Is this an article that I should be on the forum to answer this? The article is updated. What? I'm not sure what this is trying to tell me. Enough information has been gathered on the forum to answer this. The article is updated. Okay, what was the answer? Brain Warrior? Should I just do some crappy looping and hope that it's good enough? Obviously this is probably going to be too many cycles wasted, but let's see what we have to do. So we're just going to have to kind of fudge it. Load x30. Oh, dummy. Let's introduce an infinite loop. All right. I mean, that seems to look pretty clean. Is that sufficient to just force it to loop a little bit? I mean, I guess without an actual solution from NESDev, it seems like that's going to be the best we can do. It's funny, it doesn't seem to be one. Well, so of course the position is still not what I want it to be. Is one cycle through this actually sufficient to bump it to the end of that glitch to the end of the screen? No, it's here now. Let's take a look at the Hex Editor. Oh, I'm on the wrong line. Okay, so let's see. It's about halfway through, so if I make this 5, bumped it a little bit, make it 10. Obviously, this is an extremely scientific way of ensuring perfect precision. Let's see, we're close, probably a few more cycles. Glitching now? Nope, that looks good. All right, so just kind of forced some cycles to pass so that we can get that status bar to look decent. Oops, that's not the so then we should be able to, in theory, let's take a look at the PPU. Should be able to get these tiles in there. So that's OD, OE, OF, 10. No. Yeah. Oh, right, because it's packed in there 1D. 1D, 1E, 1F, 20. 2D. So I'm gonna actually get some real text in there, but that's, I mean, that's effectively what the status bar should look like if we had some real data in there. I guess I want to use one of these solid tiles and maybe change the attributes so it's got a different palette, so it kind of stands out a little bit from the background color. The other thing is I'm still not curious as to why this is going to that position, which is what the scroll is. 32 is because of the offset, but the scroll, oh wait, that is right. No, it's not right. It's close. It's close to... Is that the tile? it's more like 16 instead of 0, which is what I wanted, but is there some sort of math that it's doing that's not allowing it to be at 0 like that? Or let's see. What is this? Let's see. So if we're doing the split, the name table number. So if we've got the name table number correct, then when I change this, we should see that at that scan line, it's going to now not flip back, flip it over to the right name table. So let's see. Yeah, okay, so that's good, because that means we had that part right. And I know this has nothing to do with the palette stuff that we were working on, but it just kind of bothered me that it wasn't working. So I really want to see if I can get this to work exactly right. And then who knows if this is going to actually work on the NES. Hopefully. I'll try that after the stream tonight. So we've got this correctly switching name tables, and now the X position is correct, but the Y position is wrong. If I were to change the Y position to, let's make it 240, just out of curiosity to see. I don't need this. Don't need that. It's F0. So if we were to change this to F0, and then we have to do this math, we say that's F0 and F8, and then we want to shift that left by 2. So that would make it 3-0, and this is still OR 0 because X is 0. So make that C0 at the end. I did that right? So if we do right shift 2, what we should end up with is 1100. So if I do that, 1100 binary 1100 0000 C0. Okay, just making sure. Need this right now. So that is at the bottom now. What is that? It's 32 by 30, so 3 by 8 is 160. If I push this up even further, is it going to wrap like with the other stuff? Let's see. So F shifted by 2. Well, sorry, it's FF and F8 and left shift 2. That gives us E0. Right, it was F8, yep. Oh yeah, okay, cool. So that did actually wrap it the way that I wanted it to. So then I should be able to update the address, what is this, 2400. The main thing is I just want this to be consistent, but I also want it to kind of be in the spot that I want it to be in. Yeah, that worked. Okay, cool. And then is there any weird artifact from that? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see if that actually works correctly on the NES, but as far as that goes, that looks right to me. I may have all this other code that I've commented out, but okay. One other thing I was thinking about while we were in between the previous stream and this stream was that so I have these little displays that I use to time the cycles for, or count the cycles for the NMI, the game loop, and the IRQ. And I was thinking about the way that I've in the past gone into this Hex Editor and looked at the memory. And it occurred to me that that's kind of silly because I can use the Lua code to display my debugging information in real time while the game is running in the emulator. So, for example, let's see, where is... So the entities code is going to be a little tricky because it's going to be a little tough to find. Well, actually it won't be that hard to find because I should be able to just see it move when I'm pressing the controller. So it looks like it's right here. That's the X. And that's the Y. So, and then the entity type. Well, let's see. So, what does that structure look like? We've got the X position, the Y position, the velocity type, and a byte of data. So what we should be able to do is actually use the Lua code to display information, for example, about some of the entities. That would be kind of cool. So now obviously when we change our if we change the memory around, it's gonna make it harder for us because we're not going to see that information. But part of the reason I was doing that was because it was hard to at times determine what was going on with specific parts of the memory. So let's see, Lua for loop. I don't know Lua great, so I don't know the syntax. Okay, so for I is equal to 0 to, or is it just 0 comma, and then what's our max entities right now? 68, 18, and then do and so if the byte, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if, no, 4. If the fourth byte there is not 0, then it's actually an entity that's active. So if memory dot register, no, remember, not register, read. How do you do read byte? OX. Come on, go back to this, please. 2O plus I plus 4. Well, I times the entity count, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bytes times 6 plus 4 equals 0, equals 0, then, and, well, doesn't equal 0. Let's see, let's make sure that this is, was it the wrong syntax? Like I said, I don't know Luic that well. Comparisons, where are you? Operators does not equal. Check if that's in or not equal. Okay. Like that. Okay. And then we can say GUI text 1040 entity I. So just have that display the entity no. Probably doing this wrong. Read byte, memory, not read byte. Read byte 20 plus I times 6 plus 4. Is it 4 or is it, wait, is it 4 or is it 3? 1, 2, 3. No, it is 4. Doesn't equal 0. Right, because 0 is, it should be no entity. So any type player. Where's the definition for that? Oh, is that? I forgot we're potentially generating that. Yeah, I forgot we're generating that. All right, so yeah, so it is 0. All right, what don't you like about that? Read byte, get an unsigned byte from RAM. Here's the byte regardless of emulator. The byte will always be positive. Okay, so read byte from Hex Editor. It's 20 in hex. 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that not entity 0? Oh, I'm off by 1. Should be 21. Okay. So entity 0. And then let me do this. Let me assuming that's how you do that. Find out in a second. Functions. Okay, we say function get type label type eType. Oh, right. There's no curly braces. Is there a case instead of using if? Nested ifs. I don't have. All right. Well, if eType equals 1, then return. I guess this isn't great because it's getting the. You may want to do something where it's actually taking a look at the entities file and getting these strings out of that. But in the absence of that, what are you doing? Thank you. Blaster. Bullets. Flyby. Player. Else return unknown. And okay, so this should return now what type of thing it is. Okay, cool. So we just need a space in here. And then we can also display stats about the actual entity, like what it's doing. Plus, let's say plus I times 10. And we can say memory dot read. Well, just get the value, right? Base adder equals 21 plus I times 6. Base adder plus 4. X equals base adder, right? Yep, and then Y is plus 1. And then X velocity velocity, y velocity, and then type, have e type. Okay, so that's that, and then we can do e. So let's see if that's working. It is. Okay. It's going to get a little crowded here, but we can see the position now. See, and that's kind of cool because now we can actually see our entity list as things are spawning. Kind of wish there was a way. You can't. Well, you can. Can I make this render that off screen over here? I don't know. Minus? Be curious to see if that works or if it just gets cut off. That would be cool if you could, because then, nah, it doesn't take up so much space. The other question is it possible to just make it smaller? So now, although it will be distracting to have this running while we're playing it, obviously, if we're trying to debug something, it will make it easier if we can see these things. So that's kind of cool. I don't know that we need this here. We can just say 0 colon. Right, because we know it's an entity. The important thing is knowing what kind of entity it is, and the position, and then the velocities would probably be useful as well. So you can see right now, there's obviously a bug in the movement code because the velocity is getting much bigger. Oh, but that's a, okay, so that's a sine value. So what we need to do is we need to properly swap that over. So notice that it always returns a byte regardless. Byte will always be positive. I mean, we should just be able to, if it's over a certain value, should be able to just force that to be negative. I always forget, because it's not something you're dealing with a whole bunch. So if it's greater than 127, we want to, if it's greater than 127, like it's 128, we want to subtract. Yeah, we want to subtract 256, and that'll give us our negative value. So if xv is greater than 127, then xv minus equals 256. Is that valid, Lua? Hopefully. Nope. Equals xv minus. if yv is equal to, is greater than 127, then yv equals yv minus 256, and okay. Let me shrink that back down to something that fits in here. Let's restart the game. Okay, so that fits, and then you can see that the negative value that we're getting is much bigger than the positive value, and I think that's going to be the same. It's the same problem in the negative y as it is in the negative x, but it's much clearer to see that than trying to just like feel it through the way that it controls or looking at the memory in the Hex Editor. And then we can see that those guys don't actually have velocities. Same thing with the bullets. They don't actually have velocities currently. They're just entities that spawn. And then we probably want to make it so that the player can't move past the bottom where the status bar is. So like this 175. We can limit the player's position. I don't know why I just closed FCUX. All right, so XV So let's see. So right here we're doing our X math, and then this is our Y math where we are adding to Y. And then what we should do is we should say compare to, I said 175, so what is that in hex? That's AF. Compare AF. And then if it's greater than, we're going to get minus, right? Because, yeah, so branch minus, branch plus skip cap, skip Y position cap. That would be this, skip Y position cap. And then here we're going to load A with AF, and then here we're going to store it. So what we did was we said, okay, after we add the velocity to the Y position, we're going to compare it to make sure that we haven't maxed out there, and who knows if that's right. I think that's right. Let's get our Lua code back up and running. So I obviously reverse the condition here. It looks like, yep, there we go. No. Is that because the velocity is... Oh, that's because the velocity... Really? Maybe not. Maybe it's because I'm that's weird. Okay. This is what happens when I don't do the math and the assembly stuff, and then I forget how it works exactly. So, 6502 skill trick. Is that what it is? So, if I load A with AF and then I compare it to AF after I run it, well, let's clear the carry, assemble, run. So 0 and carry are set, which is what I would expect because it's equal. So if I do this, where it's less than, 0 and carry are not set, and N is set, and branch minus those are signed, so that's not going to work. So I want to just look at B0. Just want to look at the status of carry, I think. So branch. So if carry is set, then load A is the value in A is bigger, right? Or at least equal to, which is fine. So branch carry clear. Okay. This is why having that is useful. You can do little tests. Oops. Yeah, I scrolled over there, but that, yeah, that worked. So that's cool because now I need to do the same thing in the Y and the up direction so that I don't go past the top of the screen anymore. So let's see. So is that 0? Yeah, I guess that's literally 0. Okay, so reload Y velocity. So the challenge here is I mean, I guess I could do the same kind of thing. Problem is we don't actually know what direction you're traveling in, so basically the logic is kind of dumb right now. It's like, okay, if Y is greater, well, no, that doesn't make sense. Y then, oh, because this is removing YV. Okay, so then process player remove XV. So then where's the adding of X? Skip forest, remove XV, velocity cap. Skip and process player remove YV. No, okay. So this is it's not what I was thinking. Process entity loop, process player. It's the buttons. entities, process entity. Where is it actually checking for process player? That is in here. Controller. Okay, that's what it was. So we're checking here, and we're incrementing the velocity. We're decrementing the velocity. And then it's interesting. So it's only doing this on moving down Y. Skip force velocity. Load the Y velocity, process branch of equal. So if it's 0, just go to done. Otherwise, we're going to go to player remove velocity. Otherwise, we're going to actually subtract with carry. Wait, where was subtracting max n velocity? It's been a while since I've looked at this code, so I'm not remembering exactly how this works here. Subtract max n velocity. Oh, max negative velocity. Oh, right, we're comparing it. That's right. So we're comparing it by checking the max negative velocity, and then based on the max negative velocity. Okay. So is that the problem with the velocity not being consistent in the positive and the negative? Because in the positive it's 7, in the negative it looks like it's minus 19. 256 minus 19 ED. Did I just never fix that? 248 F8. Could be. It could be that I didn't even realize that I didn't change that to match the... Oh, yeah. Okay, well, that was an easy fix. Although, well, we still have to fix the whole scrolling off the screen here. Because when you go down, if you scroll off the screen off the top and then you go down, press down to scroll, it's bumping you up above the status bar. So, hey Vashtarok. So, the question is, that's the x velocity. So in this case, we are just checking if we've hit the max velocity, and if we reload x velocity, and if, okay, so if we've hit the max velocity, if we're greater than or equal to the max velocity, we're going to restore that back in XV, and then we are in a negative velocity. Oh, I see. Okay. So I see why this is working the way that it is now. So the reason that it's working, I guess I just kind of happened to put it in the right place here for the negative velocity, because yeah, so what it should be doing then in here, this is for the negative velocity, I think. Let's see. And then this is for, no, this is for the negative velocity. This is for the positive velocity. So what we want to do is we want to check if the, after we do the add, because we would be adding it, and the velocity is negative, then what we want to do is, before we store it, same thing, we would say, okay, compare to 0, and then, well, what happens if we get, let's go back to this here. So if we have 255 and we get 0, we're going to carry clear. Oh wait, 0. Assemble, run. Carry will be set if we've flipped over to FF. Otherwise, yeah, it's still going to be, but the, was it the N flag will be, N flag will be set. So what we have to do, there's a way, so what we have to do is we compare it, and then we want to clear carry, and then there's a way to, what is it? There's a way to move the bit from N. Is that right? There's a way to make the most significant bit. Can't remember. Most. It was in here in the, I think, in the Sine Comparison stuff. Sine comparisons. There's something you could do that puts the N flag. Let's see. So when V flag is 1, use EOR to invert bit 7 of accumulator, which is the same as, yeah. Let's see, calculating enter your V has to first compare, but so you subtract instead of compare with BMI. This works, but that subtract C puts the subtraction result in the accumulator, and the N flag is bit 7 of the subtraction result. But bit 7 of the accumulator also has bit 7 of the subtraction result. So when, okay, so what it's saying is that if I do this, so we just look at bit 7. And then, so we're essentially doing it like a negative comparison, a Sine comparison here. To see if we got a -1 is essentially what we're doing here. and then we force it to 0. I mean, we could compare it to 1, but that still doesn't really, that doesn't really make it any easier if the velocity puts you over like here. You're going to still end up in the same situation. So we need to, because we're right at the edge of the screen, we need to do basically a sine comparison to see if it's become negative. So what we would need to do, so I'll store this value because it may be okay. And then what we need to do is this. We want to do set clear. We want to subtract the number. If v is 0, let's see here. A is less than. Okay, so we're gonna do the subtract of 0. We're going to then do our BVC to skip cap EOR. This is going to EOR 80. This is going to be skip cap EOR. And then we can use BMI or BPL. And so if BMI is less than, let's see, if A was less than the number, then we want to set it to 0. So BMI, no, BPL skip 0 cap. Otherwise, we're gonna load A with 0 and store A with entity y pos y, no x. Sorry, this is skip 0 cap. Colon expected. Oh yeah. So in theory, this should have capped, and it did. Okay. So now you can't move outside. Oops. What's that all about? Did I? Oh, crap. So because it's too far down the screen, and now we ran out of precision to do. So yeah. So what we need to do, I guess, that's aggravating. So the problem is that if you start below 127, it works fine, but as soon as you get past that, it thinks it's a negative number, and then our comparison caps you back out so that you can't go past that, right? Which is what we want in most cases, but not when we're just halfway down the screen. And so I guess we have to first check if it's do we have to look and see is like the Y I mean, realistically, we only care if it's in the range of y values that would exist in here, right? And not anything else in here. So we could say so if it's negative, so if we have this condition, right? What we're doing right now is we're saying, all right, we know that this has to be a sine comparison, so we're going to set the carry. We're going to then do our BVC to our skip label. We're going to EOR 80 here. We're going to have our label. And then we're going to clear the carry, and then we have plus or minus, right? So if we assemble this and run it, at the end of the day, we have our plus and minus. That should, our branch plus, branch minus, and I forget what are these used to interpret that. Is it just the V flag? BMI, B, PL, BVC, and BVS. Flags it's specifically checking. I guess it would be checking. Let's see. So there's an easy way to see. That's 5. Oh, I'm not actually subtracting the value that I want to compare it against versus FF. Just the N flag? I guess so. Maybe the negative flag. So what? So we have to say don't do this if the value is between 128 and 175. Is that what we're saying? And what was that, AF? That seems kind of ridiculous that I have to do that. But I can't think of another way. Like we obviously don't need to do the negative check in this situation. But the only way we would know that is if we checked first against the positive values and said, okay, it's in a range that we know is considered safe. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's not ridiculous. Maybe that's just how you have to do it with 8-bit signed values. mean, we could... Yeah, no, I can't think of any other way. So before we even go through this, we say, okay, so we have the position, and then we want to compare it to 8.0, and so let's say we have the position is clear load A, and it's like 85. Compare it to 8.0, we're going to get that they're not equal, and the carry is set, right? And if they are, if it's here, we get the carry clear. So let's see. So if the branch carry set to skip 0 cap, and then compare it to AF, and I guess it's the same thing, right? Like branch carry clear. So if we're now comparing this to AF, whereas if it's like a B0, carry should be set, yeah. So branch carry, blah, I can't speak. Branch carry clear to skip 0 cap also. So we're just doing those two comparisons to make sure that we're not within a range that we would consider safe, so we don't have to do the negative comparison. That fixed it. Whoa. Except now we're back to the problem we had before, and it's because what? Because when we get to 255, and we compare it to that, the carry is set, but let's see if we compare it to 8.0, the carry is set. Well, no, that should be okay. Do I have to clear it each time? Oops. Shouldn't need to. Seems like it should. Nope. What am I missing? What am I missing? When we're in that range where it's okay, we say, okay, we have 8.0, we're comparing, carry is set here, so we're going to skip, and then we'll say, okay, carry is set, so we're going to skip, 90, carry is set, so we're going to skip it. I don't think that matters. So if the carry is set, we're going to skip. All right, so if the carry is clear, it's because we are in a value that might potentially be problematic, so like FF. So now the carry is clear, so we would come into here and we would compare it to AF, and the carry would be set. So we're going to set the carry and subtract 0. And is A just not the right value? I don't know. Let's do this. When we store A here, let's store it into 7F 7FA. Is that our debugging breakpoint that we've been using? I haven't had to use it in a while, so consider that a win. 7FA, yeah. So turn that on. Who else is using this right now? Oh, metatile stuff. Don't need to do that there. Okay. So let's see what's gotten broken. Okay. So A has the current Y position. So we're gonna, let's see, we're gonna compare it to 8.0 and carry is clear. And so we're just gonna skip over and we're gonna deal with the Y velocity, and then Y velocity is done. And it's just gonna keep doing this until we get out of that range. So it fixed that problem. So let's see what the issue is here. I move it. So why is this not? Damn it. Let me do that. Let's see if that works better. Why is that not triggering that? So FE is the current position of the Y. We can see that here it's wrapped around. We're going to step over. We're going to compare it to 8.0. Carry is clear. No, carry is set. Oh, why is carry set? When I do it here, let's see, let's take these values and try it out. So load A with FE, compare it to 8.0, assemble, run, carry is set. Oh, is it just I have the wrong logic? Or should I be doing it? Oh, maybe I should be doing the check the other way around. I should be checking AF first. Because if I check AF first and carry is clear, then let's see. So then that would mean like what? Like we're in 5, 8, 0. Yeah, we're not anywhere near. We can be up until that point that we're close to it. As soon as we get a greater than it, I think that's why we're checking the order out of incorrectly. So now we're saying, okay, we're actually greater than AF, which we shouldn't be. And then we just want to compare to make sure that, let's see, so 8, 1, maybe that's all I need to do, is I don't actually care about the 8, 0 part at all. Oh yeah. Okay, so basically what I wanted to do is just say, look, if the value I'm getting is, so what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, we add the velocity, obviously, and then we say, okay, if the value we're getting is bigger than the y position that we should be capping it at here, then what we need to do is check to see if the value is actually negative. We actually maybe don't even need to do that. Could we just get away with saying, okay, if it's bigger than that, we know it's wrong, so just make it 0? I guess we probably could. And then that eliminates all of this. That'd be kind of nice. Let's see. Let's see if I'm thinking about that the right way. Yeah, okay, that's a lot more straightforward too. Because now it's just saying, okay, if you're getting a position that says you're above, you're greater than this status bar line, you shouldn't be, so just force your way back to 0. Same thing with this. It's just saying, okay, if you're getting a position that's greater than this, that actually works a lot better. We can still go in the X direction. We can fix that in a second here. Okay. So let's fix the X direction rollover, and then I think we're good for tonight. I didn't really get to any of the palette stuff and map stuff I wanted to, but we started down this road and felt right to just kind of finish that off. So let's see. So if we're so in this case we're adding, it looks like we're adding the negative value. Oh, hold on a second. 7FA. Sorry, I just want to get rid of this breakpoint right that we were doing. So we've capped the value, and now we're going to take the negative and we're going to add it to the X position. That's going to move us to the left on the screen. And then what we need to do is we need to say, okay, compare that to let's see. What's the maximum X position? Is it 256? It is 256. So if we're heading left and Is this a case where we do actually need to use the negative because we're not comparing it based on this thing like we are with the y? Or can we do the same sort of thing? In this case, we said we could do that because we're never gonna, we should never actually show up in that spot. So that made sense. In this case, we can be freely across the whole horizontal field of the screen. So I think this is a case where we would want to do the negative check. So what we would need to do is set the carry and then subtract it. Subtract 0. I don't remember this 100%, so we're going to go back to this. I think then, depending on the V flag, we branch or set the EOR. Hold on a second. So we subtract the number, and then we VVC to skip X cap EOR. This is EOR 80. Wait, E0 80. 8-bit. Yep. So we do that, and then we have our skip X cap EOR, and this is, we'll call this left because this is, we're moving to the left. And then we want to say, okay, so if A is less than 0, we want to do nothing. I mean, we want to cap it, but if it's greater than, we want to do nothing. So we say, okay, branch of plus to skip X cap. This should be E or left, X cap left. Otherwise, load A 0, store A. Entities plus, oh, we can just load A 0. Oh, we've got to store A here. So in this case, we want to load it and store it. Otherwise, we want to say we're done. Whatever we stored was good. So let's see if I didn't mess that up. We shouldn't. Okay, cool. So now we're actually properly capped over to the left. And now we got to do the same thing for the right, where basically, well, the difference for the right is actually, it's simpler because we know that the player sprite has some width. So we say, okay. Oh, we're running into the same freaking problem. It's bananas. Well, let me deal with that in a second. In the case of this, it's 256 minus the... Oh, actually, you know what? We might end up in the same situation here. So if we're subtracting, because the sprite can't go off the screen, that actually works out well. All right, so because we know the sprite can't go off the screen, basically when we're heading left, what we want to do is we want to compare the value to 240 decimal, which is F0 in hex, and we want to say, okay, if if it's greater than F0, so let's say we have E0 and we compare it to F0. So if we have E0, we're good. We don't need to do anything. And the carry will be clear. So basically, if the carry is clear, we're going to go to skip x cap 0. And then here we're going to load this and store that, and then this is skip x cap 0. So basically it's the same kind of thing. We don't have a status bar at the bottom, but we know that the x position can't exceed the maximum position that we're going to allow over here, right? Because over on the right hand side we're going to say, okay, if it's greater than 240, make it 240, which is F0. So if we see that it's greater than 240 when we're heading left, then we know we've rolled over, so we just set it back to 0. So that actually works out better because it's much easier to do because we're not doing the negative comparison. And I didn't realize that until I started looking at how we were going to cap that. So here we're going to say, okay, we add this and we store it, and then we say compare it to F0, and then if it's greater than, we would see the carry is set. Oh, symbol carry set. So branch carry clear to skip x right cap, load a F0, store a. Let me just copy that line, and then this is skip x right cap. What did I call the other one? I'll just make it consistent. Skip skip x left cap. Okay, so let me add some comments here because I'm definitely going to forget this. Oh, what are you doing? Sublime text. Okay. Compare the x coordinate with 240, which we should not exceed because we're capping the movement to the right to 240. If we're greater, then cap the left movement to 0 because we've scrolled off the screen. And then same thing here. Compare the x coordinate with 240, which we should not exceed. If carry is set, then we're larger and need to cap the x value. Alright, so that, and I'll do the same thing for y in a second because it's the same principle. So that's that, and that's that, and that's that, and that looks all good. So now we're properly bounded to the actual play area of the screen, which is cool. And we've got our little debug display working here in the Lua script. So now, oops, now as we add things to our entity list, we can actually see them spawning. We should fix the fact that they're going to traverse the status bar. Should really get some real graphics here. These are so ugly. Okay, so that's good. Where's the Y capping? Okay, so compare the y value against what is AF? 175. 175. If we are greater than 175, then we need to cap this value. And then the other one was here. Compare the y value against 175. If we're greater than 175, it's because we've scrolled over and need to cap this back to 0. Okay. So just make sure that I didn't break that for some reason. Okay. So we're actually bounded properly now. All right, cool. So that's I'm pretty happy with that. I like these. I like these debug displays. I feel like that's going to be helpful. I just wish it weren't right in the middle of what we're doing here. I might kind of push everything down over by the status bar. Obviously, it can be turned off. The problem with pushing it on the status bar is that then as we add more entities to the screen, we're going to lose some of them to the bottom. The other thing is I want to start looking at how we're going to add. I guess it should really go back to cropping that top part of the display, only because it's really irritating to watch that happening. We can even cap the top a little bit closer now. I'd like to start working on collisions so that you'll actually collide with tiles on the map here. Right now there's no collision detection for anything other than the flybys and the bullets, which, I mean, you know, obviously that works, but we probably want to do something a little bit more, and then I should really figure out how I'm going to get more artwork to make these levels look decent, since this test artwork is starting to get boring. But I mean, some good progress here with the debugging and the bounding of the sprite to the screen parameters now, and fixing the status bar hopefully correctly. You know what we can do before we go here? Let's write a couple of values to the status bar so that we can actually have something in there. Maybe we'll just have that press start content written so that there's something, and then this will also help when I pop it into the NES and see if it's looking correct. So let's do that. So status bar, load A20, yeah, load A0, and then so that's loading the address into memory, and then the place where we're actually writing is 2700. What is this doing? This is loading 4000 for some reason. Let's do 2700, and then we'll load, I'll just hard code the values for now. Get rid of this stuff here. So load A, and the tiles we want are 0D, 0E, and 0F, and then I think that it's 1E, 2E, 2F, oops, 1E, 1D, 1E, 1F, and then 2D. We just make these store into 2007, which is going to store them into the appropriate memory. And then, are we actually calling this anywhere? Yeah. Let's see if that loads the name table properly now with some stuff. No. Okay. Did it load the name table at all? No. Why? Draw, jumps, draw, status bar. Did I load the wrong load level? $2,000. Where's the name table? That's 2,000, right? Yeah. So if I put the 192, that's 2,400. I didn't do that. Oh, and I'm also doing it in the wrong order. It should be okay. I just have that in the wrong spot now. That should be, what did I say? It was 2,400. So 24. Reload the ROM. Okay, so press start shows up there now. Cool. So we've got something, and it actually will help us make sure that we are working correctly on the NES. So that's it for now. Hopefully that was, I don't know, I thought that was cool. We got a lot done. As always, if you have questions, you can find me on Twitter at Clearvis. You can comment on the video on YouTube. I post the recordings after I'm done with the stream. And I'm on Nintendo Age and the Nintendo Age Discord if you need to reach me. So see you Monday. Have a good weekend, and thanks for watching.